Welcome to Backstage at Upstage, a presentation of Upstage Lung Cancer, which uses the performing arts to raise awareness and funding for lung cancer research. Here's your host, the founder and president of Upstage Lung Cancer, Hilde Grossman.
Hi, I'm Hilde Grossman, and we're so excited to have you with us today backstage at Upstage. My friend Jordan is here to introduce our guests.
Hilde, our topic is While the Theater Was Dark, and today we're joined by three show people, all of whom have graced stages with you over the years for concerts to support upstage lung cancer. We're thrilled to welcome Boston actress and singer Leigh Barrett, John King, who now calls New York his home, where he works in production and management on Broadway, and actor, dancer, choreographer, and more, Ilyse Robbins. Hilde?
I'd like to welcome our three guests today who are just so dear to me, all of whom have participated in upstage lung cancer musical productions, and they have been a blast. I have so many amazing memories and so many laughs and tears throughout the years. And Ilyse, without you, we would never have reached the first-class professional level of concerts that we've done for the past 12 years. It's now 1 year into the COVID pandemic, and this past year has changed all of our lives. I heard someone describe this as a year ago, the clock stopped. And I thought that was pretty apt. It's just kind of the way it is. But talk to me, Ilyse. What's your year been like?
Right before it hit, I was working on a world premiere jazz tap ballet that I choreographed and staged. And I keep thinking how lucky we all were that had its run. I think about it all the time. It turns out that I think it was already in the building. We had some real sickness, some real illness in the building. It ran until March 1st. Just really grateful that we got to experience that and present that and share that. It just reminded me to take things as they come. I wasn't going to do that project. I thought I was too old. I thought there was no way I could physically and mentally accomplish that. And I'm so glad that I tried and that I did it when I did, because, well, my body's out of shape now. After this year, I don't know. I really don't know that I could attempt something like that. Finished that production. As the Associate Artistic Director of Greater Boston Stage Company, I'm involved in all productions. So they were just putting up The Moors, and I ran the photo call for that show, and then the show came down. So we did our dress rehearsal, took all the photos, and no one went back to the theater the next day. It was so surreal. And same thing happened. So I do a few different jobs. You know that about me, Hilde.
I know.
So I work for a presentation skills company. And I remember flying to Florida in January or February and driving up to New Hampshire and doing those gigs. And then all that stopped. It felt like we were suspended in time. And so it definitely took me a bit of time to kind of figure out where I was suspended in time, where we go next. I never want to hear the words new normal again. I never want to hear the word pivot again, which is hard because I'm a dancer. Pivot, step, walk, walk, walk. But if one more person says we had to pivot, my next project was supposed to be choreographing and directing Matilda for GDSC. So at the beginning, I was like, oh, we'll do it in the fall. We're going to be doing it in the fall. So I kept choreographing. I kept doing all the work for it. And I remember the day I actually packed up the books and sent them back and just feeling so sad. Not that I was working for nothing, but I don't know when the next time is we'll see something with 25 people on stage or 20 people on stage again. It just feels very far away to me. I've been doing, socially, I've been doing some really fun, interesting things. Almost every Saturday night, I have a group of dancer friends, and we watch dance movies together. We've watched 35 so far.
Oh, God.
It's been amazing. It's been a great learning experience for me as well, just to revisit some of those older dance movies. And as far as work goes, so we were furloughed for 6 months. We all got to work, I think unemployment allowed us to work 4 hours a week. I've become the social media person, which is hysterical. Guys, I am not 25. I should not be the Instagram person, but I am. So I was taking those 4 hours just to sort of do that a couple of times a week. But now we are back. I work 20 to 30 hours a week. We are trying to put together a season. Our young company, our education program, went out with a virtual festival this fall that went so well that we're doing a virtual festival in the spring that will hopefully culminate in an in-person. We are hoping to do the summer festival. Those kids will be in person. So right now, I, with our team, are trying to put together a season.
And so there's hope because the theater there'll be light at the end of this tunnel.
Absolutely. I mean, there has to be,
Yeah.
right? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just like talking away. Sorry, you guys. Leigh, John, you don't get to speak today. I'm just like chatting away.
To hear,
Keep it going.
to hear what you've been up to. So, John, you moved out of our area, out of Boston, and you went to the Big Apple. And I was thinking the other day, I was thinking of some of the shows we did together for Upstage Lung Cancer, and I thought of, for some reason, that when we did the Sinatra show and we did Come Fly With Me, Leigh will remember that. It was Leigh and Paula Markowitz and John and myself. And for some reason, it just made me laugh with joy. It was a lot of fun doing that show. So New York, you went to New York, and tell us why you went and what you've been doing and what the year's been.
Yeah, Upstage Lung Cancer shows were so much fun to do. Incredible memories, of course, being with you and Leigh, and of course Paula. She's one of my dearest friends. But 4 years ago, I literally changed my life and changed my career from banking and went into, I guess you would say, arts administration. And I landed the sweet role of first house managing a Broadway theater, and now I am the assistant general manager for a Broadway theater. So that's what brought me to New York, to just drop everything and take my dog and my husband with me. But I did that, and it's been probably one of the most wonderful things that I could have done for myself, for my soul. Just make it, theater itself just makes me incredibly happy. And not being in the theater community right now has been really devastating, because for me, since I was like 13 years old, I can't remember a day not stepping into a theater unless I was, on vacation in Mexico or something, whether it be seeing a show with Leigh in it, or Ilyse, or being in a show myself. I mean, or I've always stepped into a theater. So it's been, rather devastating and hard to, keep the positivity going, especially being in the management side of things and trying to keep my employees active and, keeping their spirits up. But it's been hard. But I will say, like Ilyse, the day that we shut down, we were actually supposed to have an invited dress of 500 people come to see Plaza Suite with Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick. So, it was one of the most difficult things to have to stand in front of a group of people and tell them that Broadway was shut down, and literally, the auditorium had tech tables all over the place, lighting equipment and gear, and just the whole theater was crazy full with all of this stuff. And we told people they literally had 5 minutes to leave the theater, and to this day the theater is still left the way it was.
Oh, that's so sad. You think of Broadway, you think of lights, you think of activity and vitality and excitement.
All of that. Yeah. So, what I've been doing in the meantime is trying to keep positive, read the Broadway briefing every day, seeing what's happening with the progression of, the pandemic and all of that. I myself have been trying to get work just, part-time, full-time, just for the time being. And that's been pretty difficult. But I am bartending weekends at a restaurant, so that at least gets me out there, to still be with people and, enjoy people as well.
Right.
So, it's been helping.
Well, the isolation is really hard. And so I think to you, Leigh, we've communicated during this past year. You've helped me through with some virtual show I put together for Upstage Lung Cancer in the fall, which turned out to be kind of great. But I thank you for putting up with all my thoughts and questions and what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So that was really great. And I'll always, one of the other things, well, I have 1,000 memories, but one of my memories with you, Leigh, was the year that we did a tribute to Leonard Bernstein. And we did the quintet from West Side Story. For you listeners, if you don't know what that sounds like, it was, oh my God, we were pulling our hair out. It was quite something. But in any case, you've done many things up till this, as I said, the clock stopped. What have you been doing? What's life been like for you? And then what's the year brought?
I feel like not as exciting as for some here, but I'm listening to Ilyse. I'm like, I've done nothing. I haven't done anything.
Not true. You made masks.
Oh yeah, no, I'm still doing that. When everything was getting shut down, I had literally just finished Little Women at Wheelock Family Theater, and was doing a play, a musical play with Paula Markowitz, written by Lisa Rafferty, about women's suffrage. And we were rehearsing at the Boston Public Library, and we were supposed to do public performances like the weekend of the 13th. So it's coming up. There was the rumblings of, what is this thing? And like you look out at the ocean and you see that dark cloud sort of coming at you. That's what it felt like. And some people were like Chicken Little, and some people were like, oh no, it's all fine. Everything's fine. Lick the doorknobs, do the things. And I'm a little bit of a germaphobe anyway. So that was concerning to me because we weren't shutting anything down early enough, in my opinion. So that was a little scary, waiting for them to sort of pull the plug on us being in person and rehearsing and things like that. That just made me really nervous. So I was grateful when the decision was finally made. But I didn't expect it to go on quite as long as it has been. I thought, oh, we'll be, locked up tight for a little bit, and then, it'll go away like other things, like a flu or a cold or whatever. I try to not like a positive Polly, but I like to sort of okay, how can we make something work? And there has to be something we can do. I had a house of 6 from the very beginning. My son came home from college with his girlfriend, and my other son was living here, and then his girlfriend was here. So it was 6 of us, and that was exciting. It was it's like the pioneer days, figuring out how to feed them all, how we were going to get groceries. I kept saying it was like one of those PBS shows. Remember those shows where it was like, live in the 1820s house, that kind Thing? Mm-hmm. Anybody remember that? I'm the only one. But that's what it felt like. It felt like, oh, let's make our own soap. Nobody could find yeast to make bread or flour. And so that was exciting for a little bit, but that wears very thin. I did start making masks because there was a shortage. No one could get them. I was worried about friends and family and strangers who couldn't get them. So I was blessed with a sewing machine from the 1970s that belonged to my mom, and, remembered how to sew a straight line, and I could watch YouTube. So I figured it out, and I'm still doing it. We all thought for a long time that, oh, things are opening back up, we won't need them anymore. But it seems like it's still, I'm going to be in business.
We'll get back to the podcast in just a moment. Upstage Lung Cancer exclusively uses music and the performing arts to get the word out about lung cancer. Through concerts and activities, Upstage helps fund much needed research. As the saying goes, find it, treat it, beat it. Please subscribe to this podcast series and tell your friends. Oh, and if you'd like to join our efforts, consider a donation of any amount at upstagelungcancer.org. And now, back to the podcast. We have screens and we can watch movies and television shows and binge like crazy, but there's something magical, as John said, about live events, live performance. It's almost a double-edged sword for all of you because you're not only great performers, which you love, but you're also audience members. Reflect on what it means to take the arts away, and maybe for once the society is going to realize how precious it is. Just your general thoughts on it. Hilda, you want to start?
I would love to. I wanted to add my own little piece, and then I promised to say something there. But for me, the pandemic came just as I was about to do a table read for a musical theater piece I have been working on for probably close to 20 years. I have a writing partner, my friend John, and John and I wrote a musical theater piece called Ziegfeld. It was based on the life of Florence Ziegfeld. And we wrote original music, and Leigh was going to have a nice part. And I think, in all humility, it's like a wonderful show. So I was just beside myself with excitement to be able to do that table read in a theater, and then boom, the theater shut down. And so I can go off in another direction in terms of, my belief. I guess I'm sort of the person, if you get lemons, make lemonade. If you can, you can't always do that. But I think that's why I've gravitated toward virtual concerts. And then we started this podcast series, which has been so exciting. It's a way to also have a voice and connect with other people. But I know for myself, being in the theater, especially for a musical, for me, there's almost nothing like it. It just transcends. It's the most spiritual kind of experience that I can think of. I just feel just taken almost outside of myself. And, for those musicals that I've really loved and have seen many times, like Guys and Dolls and Fiddler on the Roof, there's just nothing quite like it. So that's my experience of being an audience member, and how sad it is. It's a huge loss not to be in that theater with other people on stage.
I don't think I've ever gone more than a week without being in a theater since I was like 5. I mean, it's really odd. Even when my husband and I was very lucky to travel around the world with my husband when I was younger, before we had kids. And everywhere, I either found a dance class or a show. We saw so many shows. We saw outdoor theater, we saw indoor theater. And so it feels like a lost year almost. This year, it's very strange. And for me, I will say I'm so impressed by all the virtual theater that's been happening. It's not the same for me. It is very different than going and seeing Andre de Shields do Hadestown and look directly up at you when he takes his bow. It is so different. There is something, and also, so I'm going to go back to that one. So I saw one of the last shows I saw on Broadway was Hadestown before everything closed down, and I was able to get last minute tickets for one of those little tiny boxes. I'd never sat in one. The little, I think they're called dress circle boxes. And
they're the worst.
They are, but it was so fun because there are like 6 people there and you get to know your neighbors. So we're chatting with the other people, and there was this community of us, right? And the show was delicious and delightful and unbelievable. And I was like, oh, I'm going to see it again so I can see what happened. Because, when you're in those boxes, you can't see in the corners. But I haven't gotten to. But so you have this community up here, and you're living and breathing, and you're laughing because other people are laughing, and you're enjoying it together. And then our little box jumped up, and and Andre the Shields look right at us. And there's something so amazing. The whole experience. It's so sad that we haven't had it for a year. And I'm usually, and I think Leigh was touching on this, and most people know I'm usually the optimist in the room. I usually am the glass half full, I'll make rain and it will fill all the way to the top. I'm really worried about the coming back. I'm really worried. I think technology was already eating into live theater audiences to begin with. And they say it takes 30 days to change a habit. And I think there are all these people who now are in this habit of sitting and watching things and not doing things live. I mean, even this is such a small, even my lecture, which is done, we do it virtually over Zoom. People missed it for one reason or the other, and they asked for the recording, and we don't record it. It's one and done. And I think people are so used to just being able to, I'll get the recording. I'll see it in my own time. I'll see it. And I'm worried that people aren't going to make that effort to get up and put on real pants and get in the car. You know what I mean?
I've been worried about that for a long time. I don't know about John or Leigh, but I've actually, before the pandemic, I've watched more and more venues where live music is performed closed. They're just, in Boston, they're just like 10 little Indians. It just, one goes, one goes, one goes. And so I thought even before the pandemic, people are staying home. They have gigantic screen televisions. They get takeout food delivered by somebody else. You could stay in your house forever, which then the pandemic had. And then we were staying and we still are. So I don't know what John or Leigh, I don't know what your feelings about or worries about whether or not people are going to be hungry to rush back to the live theater again.
I'll jump in. I think New York is very different maybe from other places, because I truly believe that Broadway is the mecca of New York. I mean, people come here to see live theater. I mean, it's the best in the world. But I think virtually it just doesn't do it for me. I've seen probably at least 12 to 15 virtual shows, and I'm staring at the screen and I'm just not impressed by it. I think when you're sitting in a theater, you escape the reality of your life and you're drawn into what's happening on stage. And I think that's what people are missing. It's the only way you can really escape for 90 minutes to 3 hours, depending on what type of show it is. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I desperately miss. I do try to be that half glass full and all of that stuff as well, but I do think I think that's what at least New York is missing, and it will get back to that. And I think it's going to be better than what people think. I think theaters are really going to be at that 90% capacity versus people being afraid and only being at 50%.
What are your thoughts, Leigh?
I was just going to say that the whole live theater experience, it's the collective enjoyment or experience of something that you only get in a live event.
Yeah,
you are all experiencing this same thing, and there's something about that you can't get. Like John said, it's easier when you're on the screen to disengage. And not be like completely sucked in, unless you sort of for yourself create that experience, but it's just not the same. I worry about the smaller venues in Boston, being able to come back. I'm hopeful that we will all sort of help each other out more, not be so separate. I'm hopeful that audiences and artists will be hungry to come back and not to walk down that road, but I mean, there were things that weren't so great about our industry and about our business, and I see that sort of veil lifted and hopefully being explored more deeply, and we can come back and do things better. in that way, not only for our audiences but for our artists, and that's very exciting to me.
And it sets up the whole notion of having something to look forward to. I think now that people are getting vaccines and we're learning a little bit more, and probably people will be wearing masks in the audience for a while, but that doesn't, it's not like you're wearing a blindfold, you're still there and you're still able to enjoy what's what. But I think being able to look forward now and, as you say, coming back better, maybe more experimental theater, more opportunities to do things, it's just looking ahead.
Heaven knows we didn't need a pandemic to break us out of a habit or a rut that we've been in. It didn't have to be quite that catastrophic. A little nudge would have been fine, to get our attention. But I think oftentimes, and I think of it in my day to day, that you get into this grind, you get into this rut. I do things this way all the time. I'm product over process or all of that kind of stuff, and we don't take that moment to go, what if I went this way instead of that way? And this was an opportunity, at least for me, to take that time and examine how I want to do something differently, or why do I always do it that way? Like Ilyse was talking about, getting back to movement and dancing and how she does it. And I hear a lot from friends who say, I'm really exploring the how and the why. So that even if you come back and you're doing it, the same as you did it before, I think for me anyway, I want it to be more intentional. And I needed something to really get my attention, because otherwise I don't think we take the moment that we're given, or we don't have the opportunity either to take that moment and go, why do I do that? Can I do it differently? Do I need to do it that way?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And maybe that's a good place for us to kind of wind up this particular conversation, which I'm sure we could be going on for so much longer. There's so much to talk about. If there's any benefit from having had our lives more closed in, if we're lucky, we've taken that time to be a little more mindful about ourselves, about how precious life is, doing the things that matter to us, and not being bogged down with things that are really nonsensical. They're not all that important. And so in terms of theater and music and the arts, for me, and I think I can speak for all of us, it has to be a very big part of our lives again, and trying to find ways to build that in, and think about how to do it. That's part of the joy of, I think, all of our lives. So I want to thank you all for participating in this conversation about While the Theater Was Dark. And basically, curveballs happen. And we didn't expect this one, but they do happen. And so when they do happen, it's how to recover and make the best of that. So thank you again. You'll hear us on the next podcast.
To find out how you can join Upstage Lung Cancer in raising awareness and funding to beat lung cancer, visit our website, upstagelungcancer.org. We invite you to subscribe and download our podcast, available on all platforms. And we love reviews and ratings. After all, we're showbiz people. There's more entertainment and inspiration to come on the next podcast episode of Backstage at Upstage.